A few months ago, one of the biggest food and beverage companies in the world made the decision to sell off its bottled water operation to two private equity firms. There is some speculation that the reason that they did this was because of the bad press they were getting around that operation for the last few years. Bad press because of their bad behavior, to be precise. A few years ago, an investigation revealed that this company was helping itself to water that it wasn't entitled to. Fast forward to 2020 when the company pulled 58 million gallons out of public aquifers when they were only entitled to 2.3 million gallons. So if you're doing the math there, it's 25 times more water than they should have had access to. And that was only in California. The company faced similar accusations in other states. What made the situation particularly concerning was that at the time, the West Coast farmers were struggling because of state-mandated water rationing, and firefighters feared that they weren't going to have enough water to fight the wildfires that seemed to be an annual occurrence in California. On this episode of Think Significantly, we're going to talk about what happens when individuals, to include individual entities like corporations, neglect the well-being of society in pursuit of personal gain, and how this self-interested behavior causes everyone to eventually and inevitably suffer. Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa, and I have with me on this and every podcast my or Concord co-host, Pete.
Hello, Melissa, and hello to all the listeners. This seems like a big topic, and in the interest of trying to save everyone's time, I suggest we jump right into it.
Are you implying that time is a shared commodity?
I might well be. We will only be able to sleuth that out at the end of the podcast. So why don't we get started, and you can go ahead and tee it up for us.
All right. So the example that I use in the introduction has a name. It's called Tragedy of the Commons. And while commons here refers to those things that we share communally, this is all too common. So a little bit of play on words there.
Yeah.
There are three traits that a good must have to fit the definition of a common.
Okay, lay them on me. Let's hear them.
All right. So one, it's got to be rivalrous, which means only one person can use it. And while they're using it, no one else can. So it's like the old telephone, one in your house. If you were on it, your sister couldn't use it. Right. You know what that's like.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah.
Right. It also has to be scarce. So it's limited or finite. And in addition to that, it has to be non-excludable, which means that there's no way for one user to prevent another user from accessing the good. It's essentially first come, first serve. Okay,
sure. So the example of the water in the public aquifers meets all of those.
Right. And I take sincere joy in saying aquifer. I have to.
I do enjoy that. Yes.
Right. It's a good one. I'm going to keep working it into my daily dialogue. Yes. So yes, there's clearly competition for that water supply. Only one user can use it at a time. There's no way to get a reserved portion of the water so others can't get to it. So check. I'm checking all the boxes here.
Well, not to be contrarian, but I think there's one more box left to check, and that's how's it going to be a tragedy if we don't have someone acting selfishly?
Oh, right. Okay, so good catch. So my example has that too. All good stories have the villain. This is no exception. Yes, in my specific example, that siphoning off of extra water was a definite reflection on the view that upper management of that company held. In 2005, the then CEO of that company said that he thought that designating water as a human right was extreme. Yes, you don't get water. No water for you. And then expressed that it should be viewed as a for-profit commodity.
Wow.
Yeah.
Here I thought water was the basis of life as we know it.
If you can buy it. Right. Yes. Right. Exactly. Pete, no, water is to be exploited to make a profit. Hello.
Goodness.
Yeah. And because this guy has a business that monetizes it, like he wants to make sure it's being seen as a consumer good. I mean, hopefully you're picking up on my sarcasm.
I definitely, I picked up just a tinge of disdain.
Yes.
But you know that it occurs to me that we shouldn't forget just basic economics here. when supply goes down, demand goes up, and
Yeah.
forcing the state of California into water rationing consistently is probably really good for the sale of bottled water. I would think. So yeah, I understand why this is called a tragedy.
Yes. And if you've ever been in the city and it's not raining, you can get an umbrella for $3. As soon as it starts raining, it's now $10. Right.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about the origins of this. Let's do that.
The origins of selfish behavior.
Uh, I do not think we can go back in our Wayback Time Machine that far. No. I want to talk about when someone finally named it, when someone came up with this. Let's talk about the
Oh,
history of it.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah. No, cool. Yeah, let's do that.
because I know you're familiar with this. We already talked about
Yes,
it.
of
All
course.
right. Okay. So here's the deal. The term was introduced in 1968 in Science magazine by Garrett Hardin. And he was referring to a 1933 economic theory that was put forward by William Foster Lloyd, which is, if there ever was a name, that would be it.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you should be a poet or an architect or something.
Right? I need to have my smoking jacket on when I say his name. Yes. Right. So, tragedy of the commons. That theory outlines the impact that individual behaviors have on a shared resource, which is also referred to as a common.
Uh-huh.
When some users of that shared resource act in their own interest, they run the risk of depleting the resource and thereby deprive all of the users using it, right? All of the users access to it, including themselves.
Yeah, specifically, Lloyd saw the cattle in England looking thin,
Yep.
and he was curious. He was thinking significantly about why they were such a way.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that cattle grazed on public lands, and those lands were available to all the farmers in the area. And he theorized then that certain farmers, motivated by their self-interest, were overgrazing the land, and it was leaving cows from other farmers' herds with a scarcity of food.
Yeah, and so just to be clear, that overgrazing of the land means that one farmer was putting more cows out there. That's
Right.
what that is, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you got this limited amount of land, you got a limited amount of grass on that land. That finite resource can support a certain number of animals for a certain amount of time.
Hmm.
And as long as the collective number of animals doesn't exceed that critical number, that land will continue to support them.
Right.
But if you've got these farmers, they start adding in more cows because, hello, more animals mean more profit for them. The land reaches that critical tipping point. The benefit is limited to the farmer, but the cost of those extra animals is being shared among everybody else. Everyone else is kind of taking it in the shorts for one guy's gain.
Right. And of course, I mean, this goes without saying, but as more animals graze, the grass isn't able to grow back quickly enough.
Right.
And before very long, the land is barren.
Mm-hmm.
And that means none of the farmers can feed their animals.
Yep.
So because they're acting on their own self-interest without regard to how their actions are affecting those around them, they end up destroying the land, and then everyone suffered, including themselves.
Exactly. I feel your mental whiteboard on this.
Mm.
You're like, you think you're having an advantage, but ha ha ha, right?
Right.
It's like shooting yourself in the foot, but there's like this time delay. Yeah, well, this is only one example though, right? I mean, I know that you and I could come up with a ton of different examples how this model fits over a plethora of issues. Think air pollution, think industrial fishing, as I know you
I do. Yeah, I am one.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of industrial fishing thoughts go across your brain, I know. Savings and loan prices, congestion on the highway, even items in low Earth orbit. Yes.
Holy cow.
Right?
Jeez, space.
Space.
We're talking about some huge systems there. Like literally space.
Space.
But how about if I bring it down to a more granular level? One that we as individuals have some ability to influence.
Okay, I don't own any cattle, so I don't know where you're going with this.
I know you own a trawler though, and I know that you like to get out and fish. So
there you go. All right, so I'm raising my proverbial eyebrow. I'm intrigued. What is your granular example?
okay, well this actually isn't going to be a huge surprise to you. This is something that you and I have talked about at length before, and that's shopping carts.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Ubuntu tribe.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, no,
No.
not in this case.
Sawabona. Okay,
Yeah.
no, shopping carts. Yes, yes. The old do you return your shopping cart after you were done using it discussion, which reached new heights of consideration during the pandemic because there was this parallel that was drawn between it and one consideration for their fellow man.
Right. And yeah, and it's totally relevant here, right?
Yeah.
I think we can draw correlations between those big systems that you're talking about, the
Mm-hmm.
pollution on a national or global scale,
Mm-hmm.
and the things that we see in our local grocery store parking lots. We see similar behavior and similar motivations, but it's at the individual level.
Okay, I can, yeah, I definitely see how this plays in. Okay, so let me see the scene. Let me set the scene rather. I will see the scene in my head and then I will set the scene so you can see the scene in your head. All right.
Okay, right.
Okay, picture it, Sicily. Okay, you have this grocery store parking lot. You've got parking, you got corrals for the carts, the buggies, the wagons, the carriages, whatever the heck you call them in your
Neck of the
sphere of
woods. Yeah,
influence. Right, yes. So the construct is designed so that after shoppers are done with their carts, after getting their goods to their car, they're able to return the cart to the collection point so the store can quickly and efficiently replenish the store's carts periodically. It's a system, Pete.
exactly. No, right. And the dilemma is that some people refuse to participate in the system. These uh, independent thinkers keep the
Mm,
system from working as designed, and the reasons they buck the system are, I think, provide good insight into why having goods that are considered commons, and I hope you could hear my air quotes in there,
mhm.
will always end up in tragedy.
Well, one, I love how you frame them as independent thinkers. That was very kind of you. Probably the best definition. Two, tragedy sounds very dismal and depressing. Just going to say.
Yeah, well, and it doesn't have to end in tragedy. That's kind of my point. Only right, only you can prevent forest fires.
Or only you can ensure shopping cart replenishment.
Except except no, not only I can prevent it, and that's precisely why people, I would imagine,
Hmm.
don't participate in the shopping cart system. So let's break this down. Um, Anthropologist Crystal DaCosta identified 5 types of shopping cart users.
Um, did you say there's 5 types of shopping cart users?
Yeah, no, I shit you not. This is actually, there's been a little bit of study put toward this.
I believe I'm shocked at what is not studied these days. Let's put it that way. Everything seems to have been studied, but okay. Yes, I'm not familiar with the 5 types of shopping cart users, but I definitely want to hear about who they are. Go.
Okay, well, here goes. The 5 types of shopping cart users that DaCosta identified are, the first category is returners. So these
Uh-huh.
are people that always return their carts, regardless of the circumstances. Okay,
Hmm.
they feel a sense of civic responsibility for getting carts back where they belong.
Oh, this is me. C'est moi. Yes, my sense of duty is very strong.
I do not doubt that, nor am I surprised by that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So then we've got never returners, which is fairly self-explanatory. They don't care where the carts come to rest, and believe that the responsibility for them falls squarely on someone else's shoulders.
Yes, of course.
There are convenience returners.
Hmm.
These people, they will return their carts, but only if there aren't hurdles to overcome. So, so the collection point can't be too far away, and the weather has to be nice. For example, these are path of least resistance people.
I see. So it has to be convenient, hence the name. All right, got
Right,
it.
right, right, right. And then next we have pressure returners. These people will only return the carts, right? They'll only participate in the system if they know someone is watching them, whether it's a cart attendant that's out in the lot doing their thing,
Hmm.
or someone sitting in a vehicle nearby. They're motivating by avoiding judgment.
So sometimes I have tried to use my Jedi mind power tricks to get folks to do the right thing. but inevitably they turn out to be in that never returner genre. It's just lost on them.
Yeah, no, yeah, totally.
Yep. Nope. Mm-mm.
Yeah. So the last category
All
is
right.
child-driven returners.
Child-driven
Yeah,
return.
child-driven. Right.
This.
Um, and these people, they use returning the carts. It's like a functional thing for them. Um, they use it as a means to give their children an extra ride in the cart before they get in the car.
What?
Yeah, yeah. Believe it or not, this is a category big or enough people did this to make it its own category. And I would add, uh, and I don't know that this necessarily applies to this definition, but as someone with older children, I use returning carts as a way to give responsibility to my kids. You know, to let them take the carts the 10 or so feet over and let them participate in the system and let them get a feel for.
You got to train them up right, Pete.
Yeah,
Hello?
right.
All right. Well, I've got to look up the study. I got to know how many people are taking back their car just to give their kid an extra ride in a buggy. This cannot be a large number of folks. What kid is begging for 5 more minutes straddling a metal grate? They just were in there the last hour in the frozen food section. Like, who are these children? Who are these parents? What's going on here?
Yeah, and we can post the article to our social media so everybody can look into it.
All right.
I think that'd be a great idea. But you know what? Since we're talking social media, let's do some research of our own.
Okay.
We'll put the article up there, but let's do a poll on our social media accounts
Uh-huh.
and see how our significant others get broken down between these categories.
All right. So I don't want to wait for the big reveal. What are you, Pete? I'm an always returner, like to a fault. Middle of a hailstorm, locust swarm, threat of zombies, doesn't matter. The card
Cicadas?
is going back. That's where it belongs.
Do you brave the cicadas to get them back?
God, yes. Hell yeah. If not me, then who? You know? Yes.
Oh Lord. No, I'm with you. I'm with you. No matter the situation, I'm taking my cart back. I'm putting it away, and if I can grab up some strays along the way, then I will. I mean, I'm a convenience returner when it comes to other people's carts.
Oh, I see. Do you don like a fluorescent vest?
I would if I had one.
Well, that can be arranged. I will drone it to your home right now, sir. All right.
I seem to remember you telling me not to wear a vest though. So
No vest, no cape, no vest. Yes.
so I'm super interested to see what our listener breakdown is. But back to the topic.
All right.
For the people that aren't always returners, the more common excuses given for not returning carts included
Oh, I can't wait.
receptacle. What's that?
I said I cannot wait.
Oh.
I cannot wait to hear why people cannot take a shopping cart back. Go.
Yeah. So the receptacle is too far away from where they park their car,
Yes.
right? That's a convenience thing. They have a child whom they do not want to leave unattended.
I get that one. Makes sense.
Yeah. The weather is bad.
Let someone else brave the weather, right? Not
Right.
them. Yeah.
Right. They have a disability that is prohibitive to easy movement.
Makes total sense. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, oh, the perception that it's someone else's job to collect the carts,
Of course it is. Yes.
and and they're leaving the carts for someone else to easily pick up and use.
Right there where you're parked, so
Right.
someone can ding their Escalade and then, oh, fancy this, a cart right here for me. Yes,
Exactly.
got it.
Oh man, I'm so upset that I now have this scratch down the side of my car, but look at it, it's right here for me to grab.
Right here, as opposed
Yeah.
to 2 spaces over in the
Right.
corral. Yes.
Right. Or at the entrance to the store.
Mhm.
Weird.
Yeah. Weird. Well, that was interesting to me, what you were just saying. Some of those make total sense. The child, the disability, I get it.
Sure. Yeah.
I have been curious about the why behind this phenomenon for a long time, because what's super interesting to me is that the people who don't participate in cart returnage are very proud of the fact, like they voluntarily put this information out into the universe. And I'm like, why would you reveal this about yourself? Like, I'm not like, what a great person doesn't return their cart. Where I'm getting at is I've heard this because I've asked before. I've been
Right.
like, why? I'm so
Right.
curious. And I've heard people say that it's along the lines of being a job creator, if you will.
Huh.
Uh, Leaving their cart behind allows for a paid worker to take a break from the regular store tasks to come outside and collect up the carts.
You-
Or
you-
a break
right. You know what I like to do on my breaks?
at work.
Yeah. I like to just stroll around the parking lot picking up trash and just doing general maintenance around the company's grounds. It gives me this sense of calm, so I can go back into work refreshed.
Right. Yes, you're going to need this vest after all. Yes. I
Yeah.
100% make this a part of my meditative practice for the day.
Yeah. Right. 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 Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I wouldn't be the same person without being able to pick up other people's stuff. Yeah, I wouldn't be. Yes. So true.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a shame that more people aren't like us because research tells us that people are going to follow the norms for their in groups.
Okay.
So there are two types of influence to establish those norms, and they're injunctive and they're descriptive norms.
All right. So suss this out for us. I don't want to look this up right now. I don't want to invoke Dr. Google. What's the difference between these two types of norms? Tell
Okay,
us.
right. So injunctive norms, we are the ones we follow because we think our actions will change people's opinion of us.
Okay.
Okay, so we're doing it because we want people to think a certain way about us.
Okay.
Descriptive norms are when we follow the examples of those around us. So we mimic their behavior to fit in. Um, and both of these, the norms compete with our own self-interest to help shape our behavior. So when we assess that our personal need, whether it's to, I don't know, get our child to practice on time, when
Hmm.
that outweighs the influence of these norms, then we act in self-interest.
But I gotta say, Pete, that one bad apple can spoil the bushel. I've seen this in effect. There's that one shopping cart left stranded, alone in the parking lot, despite 50 of them being in the corral. And that one shopping cart left stranded sends the message to everyone like, oh, it's okay. Look, someone else did it. I don't have to return my cart. This behavior is totally acceptable.
Yeah, right. That's right. It sends that exact message for that exact norm. But what's fascinating is adjacent norms influence our behavior as well.
Hmm.
There's a study published in Science in 2008 that showed that situations where norms were in flux affected people's behavior.
We are really drawing hard on Science Magazine today, aren't we?
Hey, it's got a ton of good stuff in there.
We're covering like decades of it.
Yeah,
Yes,
right,
exactly.
right.
Yes.
No, by the way, they're not a sponsor, so just for everyone's sake.
No,
Yeah.
but now I'm going to renew my subscription ASAP. Yes.
Right. So in this scenario, in the study, in one of the scenarios, the researchers placed flyers on the windows of vehicles in a parking garage. That the parking garage served a grocery store and some other businesses. And then they monitored the behavior of the car owners when they changed the scenario. So the first scenario was all the shopping carts were placed neatly in receptacles, and in the
Okay.
second, they left the carts scattered in an unorganized manner.
Uh-huh.
And the results were that 28% more people ended up littering by throwing the flyers on the ground
Oh.
when the shopping carts were not put away.
Oh, what? Are you serious?
Yeah,
So it's like they're like, everything's a mess. I will make it more of a mess. Like, bleh, like that.
that's exactly it.
So
That's
that shopping conundrum has bigger effects than just the shopping cart system at your Piggly Wiggly.
no, absolutely, yeah.
That's
The
crazy.
one person, just one person, failing to return their shopping cart, not only does it give others permission to do the same, but it gives them permission to break adjacent norms, like littering, and many other things, like it would extend to making sure your car is fully in the parking space designation, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just all these social cues that we follow.
Yeah. The norms and the mores.
Right,
Yeah,
right. Once
absolutely.
once you see one being violated, it gives
Mm-hmm.
you permission to violate the others.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. That's a slippery slope for sure. And as we've already brought up, per the tragedy of commons, the selfish actors end up ruining things for everyone, including themselves. Though I think
That's
that's
right.
what we have to keep coming back to.
Yeah.
So if we keep sticking with our scenario about the shopping carts, when the carts aren't put away, you also have to think about those secondary impacts that include longer times to find parking, longer walks to get to the store once parked, that increased currents of damage to cars from carts that roll into them, like our Escalade example a
And,
minute ago.
no, absolutely right. And you know what other impact it has?
Mm.
Retrieving the carts is like we mentioned before. It's usually an additional duty. Like most stores don't have people whose sole purpose there is to collect carts.
Mm-hmm.
So these are your baggers, your cashiers, your stock people,
Mm-hmm.
that have to take a break from their normal duties to go out and police up the strays.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're doing that, there are fewer of them available to check out customers. So checkout times take longer for everybody. And the more loose carts there are, the longer it's going to take them to collect it, and the longer they'll be short cashiers. So
So
it's a
yeah.
repetitive, it's a whole thing.
It is. So if I had this fantasy in my head that I was giving people a break from their normal jobs to come out and wrestle 20 stray carts from a football field sized parking lot, I would be kidding myself, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, I'm sad to say you would be, yes.
And the more employees who are out in the parking lot fetching carts are doing a number of other tasks that have cropped up because we have a small collective of individuals who don't want to do their part to keep the system going, those independent thinkers that you mentioned before.
Yeah,
Now I have longer lines,
right,
right? My
right.
shelves are less stocked. So whereas I might think like, I'm getting away with not doing something with no real consequence. There is a consequence, but it's like delayed dissatisfaction. It's not really going to catch up to me until the next time I'm in the store in a long line when I'm trying to muster contentment for a can of peas because the shelf was barren of mixed veggies.
Yeah, yes, that is exactly the rub. Well, I mean, maybe not the mixed vegetable precisely, but the fact that with the tragedy of the commons, people envision the payoff for themselves
Mm-hmm.
to be so much greater than the shared cost that their behavior nets them. When in reality, they just they aren't taking a big enough picture of the situation and not seeing the full consequences of their actions.
Right. They're not thinking long enough out. Like they are now going to be on the other end,
Yes,
the end that is disserviced
right,
eventually.
right. They're saving themselves what 15 seconds of returning a cart and
Mm,
20 steps, and in the
yeah.
end are going to end up giving back so much more because of the chaos that they're introducing into the system.
Giving up, not voluntarily, but
Right.
because they are. Yeah. So this applies. Yeah. Shopping carts, clean air, drinking water, land for your cattle to graze on. We could go on and on.
And some of those things are pretty important to us. You know, this is making me think of whether or not uh, Joni Mitchell saw this all coming when she sang that we don't know what we've got till it's gone.
Where they paved paradise and put up a parking lot
That's the one.
with shopping cart corrals. That last part was insinuated in the
Yeah,
song,
no, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, right. That just didn't work into the rhyme scheme.
right? Maybe on the remake, right?
Right. No,
Yeah.
that's a great point.
We can call the Counting Crows and see if they can come up with a part deux. Yeah, yeah. Could you do a remake of your remake? Yeah,
Yeah, right.
yeah. So the whole gist of the tragedy of the commons is that things that used to be plentiful are disappearing, and this reveals a key deficiency in the way we, as a society, are thinking about these resources in the present day. Because I think an important thing to realize about all of these scenarios that we're talking about is that the planet's population is outpacing the planet's ability to sustain us.
Right. No, absolutely right. Times have changed. Um, when when settlers first expanded west, hunting, fishing, logging, clean water, They were essentially limitless.
Right.
There weren't enough people drawing on those systems
Mm-hmm.
to endanger the supply in any way.
Mm-hmm.
But as our numbers have increased, uh, and and they have exponentially,
Yeah.
the number of people taking from those systems has exceeded the recovery rate. And yeah, and on top of that, like the ratio of supply to demand is critical.
Yeah, I think that's the whole point of it, right? So, to summarize in the simplest terms possible, we're only able to manage these shared goods, these commons, when population density is low. So, think about it significantly. Haha. We abandoned the commons in food gathering because I mean, right? We started enclosing farmland. We started restricting pastures and hunting and fishing areas
Uh-huh.
because we realized as the population increased, the commons were not sustainable. They had to either be managed or they were going to be expended.
Right, right. And since you're bringing up managing commons, I want to point out that there are only really three ways to solve a tragedy of the commons scenario,
Okay.
and each has its own unique drawbacks. So we can privatize it and make it a for-profit commodity, but this increases the cost of goods for everyone, right? So things that you used to get for free, you're now having to pay out of pocket for.
Like water, Pete.
Like water would be an excellent example of that. Yes.
All right. Okay.
Okay. So you can also have the government regulate the resource.
The government can step in. Yep.
That's right. That's right. But the government regulation won't be worth it if they're not able to enforce it, right? So having a law on the books is essentially toothless if there's not the resources and the willpower to enforce those laws.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the final agreement is, or the final scenario is an agreement between all the users to preserve the resource.
They have to act collectively. They have to agree.
Right.
Right. Okay. So that collectivism that you're talking about normally results in limiting access to the resource to only those obligated by the agreement. So this like forces the hand, like you're reducing the number of people in competition for this resource.
Yeah. Right. And we don't need to look any further than the northwestern U.S. and Canada to see an example of this. The Hutterite communities there live by a communal code
Okay.
that you may find familiar,
Okay.
and it's from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs.
Is that Marx? Carl specifically, not Richard.
Right. Well, yeah, they I often get them confused. Um, yes and no. Yes and no. Marx did say it for sure, but for this deeply religious community, they're pulling their guidance from the Bible.
Okay.
They're committed to a communal form of existence, and they appear to have unmanaged commons. But what they do is control how many people are in a community. They've seen that as the numbers approach 150,
Mm-hmm.
individuals start to underperform and become more of a strain on the system than what they contribute. Through hundreds of years of lived experience, the Hutterite communities understand that the norms for their chosen societal structure
Mm-hmm.
only hold up when the population of the community is at 150 people or less.
Wow, that's amazing. Hey, that's like their sweet spot, right?
Yeah, sweet. No, sweet spot's the exact right way to put it. Right.
Uh-huh.
When the numbers get too large, the likelihood of one or more community members starting to act in their own self-interest goes up, and the fabric of society unravels.
That's so interesting to me. So, of course, my mind goes to figuring out the sweet spot using math, and these people, of course, are figuring it out like intuitively. They just get that the 151st person is like a pox on their
Yeah.
system. But because I'm a math person, this definitely makes me think of some models that were run by researchers using game theory.
Oh, okay.
Because I mean, yeah. So I love that we have this like in action, like on the ground example, and then the mathematical models, of course, are backing it up. So this experiment that I'm thinking of, the way it was constructed was the subjects all benefited from being a generous contributor to a public cachet, and it
Uh-huh.
was to shared among all the participants, but there was this chance that the generous contributors would be taken advantage of by selfish actors, right? Like, this kind of happens in our society.
Yeah, sure.
So the researchers then manipulated the size of the group participating in the exercise. And lo and behold, what do they discover? The larger the group, the less likely there's going to be cooperation.
So the research backs up the Hutterite model.
Yeah, absolutely. This definitely is not limited to just small indigenous religious communities. Yeah, absolutely. I think we've sensed this in our own worlds, right?
Right.
As the numbers grow in these models, the chance of having selfish actors in the population grows, right? It's just you're gonna have more bad apples. And having one selfish actor cause the rest of the group then to become very much more protective of their own self-interest. They felt like they had to sort of hunker down.
And acting in their own self-interest is what leads us to overgrazed pastures, stolen water, and even parking lots with stray cars.
It absolutely does. Yes, it absolutely does. 100%. Wow. For different reasons too. It's very interesting. I'm reflecting back on this whole thing. Yes, exactly. Either like I'm out front sort of being like a selfish person, or I see other people doing it and it puts a thought in my head, or I have this sort of like, I got to hold on to what's mine. You know what I mean? Though I got to like wrap my little arms around it. Yeah, exactly. But the end result is exactly the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Ruination.
Yeah. I would be thinking about it all freaking week. Yeah. All right. As we hope everyone else is. Yes. So we have definitely covered a lot in this discussion. I think that we've only scratched the surface on this issue. I think that there's definitely more we could talk about.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's continue the conversation on social media.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You can find us at ThinkSigPod on Instagram and Twitter, and by searching for Think Significantly on Facebook. We'll have our shopping cart poll posted there, and we'd love to hear from you.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us where you've seen these concepts in action. You can also give us ideas for things you'd like to hear about in upcoming episodes.
Right. Tell us what we haven't covered in this. What are we missing? Absolutely. Yeah. There's so much more to talk about.
Right. Mm-hmm. Other examples would be fantastic. Like, I'd love to hear about other things.
Sure. So Pete and I will be back to discuss a new topic next week. Until then, we encourage you to continue thinking significantly about the world around you.